let's get started. So, um, Annabelle, welcome to Wine Wednesday.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so I'm gonna play with the sound effects because I like doing it, and Jana's not here. Jana always gives me trouble when I use the sound effects, so
I
I'm
like
excited
them.
about that. Yeah. So I'm Dave Garrett, co-founder and CEO of dVIN Labs. Welcome to Wine Wednesday, Douro Valley edition. With me, we're very, very fortunate to have Annabelle Borra, who is you've if you've been a long time dVIN club member, or you've been interacting with us on WhatsApp or in Discord or in our Telegram channel, you've probably run across Annabelle. She's been helping out for a long time with a lot of different things. She's really a lot of fun and then great. Annabelle, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Of course. So I accept for just being helping out with dVIN. I also make my own wine. So 2 years ago, I started a small project in Spain. Before that, I worked in Napa Valley for a while in California for Islay Estate as enologist and viticulturist. And before that, lived in Bordeaux. I'm Dutch by origin, but have lived in many different places. So I'm very happy now to be steady for a while in Spain and to be able to help out with dVIN as much as I can.
All right. So, Annabelle, first and foremost, what are you drinking today? What are you drinking to celebrate the Douro Valley?
So I have a actually very nice one, the Graphite from the Churchill Estate. It's
Yeah.
an older vintage, so it's a 2014. It's the Torrica Nacional, and I'm honestly very surprised by how young and how vibrant it is still. It's really an incredible wine. What are you having?
So actually I'm coming to you live from Portugal. It's one of the reasons that we picked the Douro. I'm here. I'm spending Holy Week in Lisbon. On kind of a semi-vacation, enjoying. I've been to Porto many times, but it's my first time to Lisbon, so really enjoying it here. And so instead of pulling something from my cellar, I had to grab something from a wine shop. And there was a wine shop of 4 or 5 blocks from my hotel. I went there this morning. I just arrived this morning and kind of went and looked for something that I thought would be interesting. And I kind of I have something here that is, for those of you who kind of know me. um, I can tell you a little bit about Quinta Naval, which is kind of one of the oldest names in regular still wine from Douro. They've been around for, I don't know, about 200 years, probably, the winery, something like that. 150, 200 years, long time. It's one of the most established, one of the most traditional wineries, which a lot of you know that I love the old traditional wineries. So, like, for that, it's a real fit for me. But it's also a pretty large production. I typically like to stick to very low production wineries. But the reason that this stuck out to me, and the reason that I bought this bottle, is it's the 2017. And the 2017 was, I think, the lowest yield in Portugal, and certainly the lowest yield for Quinta do Noval in 30 or 40 years. So it kind of, by hook or by crook, it sort of matches up with the kind of wine that I like to drink, and it's wonderful. It's a 2017. It's showing beautifully. It's a mixture of the um, the Torriga and the Franca Nacional. So I love this wine, and I'm looking forward to taking the rest of the bottle to dinner with my wife and finishing it there. So um, awesome. So, Annabelle, now that we've got the wine out of the way, I you know I've been very fortunate in my life. I've been in the wine business for 20 some odd years now, and some of my favorite people in the world are winemakers. I've done, not only have I met a bunch and I spent a lot of time with them, I've also done books and television shows and movies about winemakers. I like to hang out with winemakers a lot, and because I think they're a special breed. And I'd really love to hear from you, like, growing up in Amsterdam or just outside of Amsterdam, like tell me about your path to becoming a winemaker. Like how did you get the bug?
Well, it's quite, I quite got the bug quite late in my life, I would say. Well, late really depends on how you look at it. But for normally, winemakers are born in a winemaking family and spend their whole life in the wine world. Well, for me, I grew up in Bennekom, which is a tiny little town in the Netherlands. I grew up in the forest, so outside I was always, which in the end is important for me because that's where I learned sustainability, how important is this to work with the nature. But before I got into wine, I studied economics and business economics. I went to Nepal for a while to teach English in a Buddhistic monastery.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I'm sorry. Let's go back to that one for a minute. So you studied economics in
yes,
university, and did you say that you got your master's in economics?
no, I did my bachelor in
Your
economics and
bachelor in
business.
economics?
Yeah.
Okay. And then obviously, because what everybody does, they either go to Goldman Sachs or they go to Nepal and teach English in a
Of
Buddhist monastery.
course,
Like
of
those are the
course.
two options.
Yeah,
How did you
it's a very
choose
natural path.
the monastery over Goldman Sachs? Like that must have been a really tough choice. You flip a coin? Is that how you get
Well,
to
you get
Nepal?
a feeling at a certain point, and you're like, well, Goldman Sachs is not gonna be it, so then let's go to Nepal.
So
So no,
how is Nepal? That's amazing.
yeah, it was really, really cool because I found out by studying economics that I didn't want to sit behind the desk filling out some spreadsheets. It just wasn't for me that this was gonna be my path. So I thought, okay, it's always good to have the basic in economics, so I should finish my studies. But I wanted to do something else for my master's. So to figure out what I actually wanted, I thought, okay, let's take some time off, let's do something different. I was always very interested in Buddhism. So I thought, okay, let's combine things a little bit, let's take some time off and at the same time teach some English. It was in a monastery actually that was for children. So it was from 8 years old to 20 years old. So we
Wow.
taught all kind of subjects like European studies, English, geography, mathematics. So it was really, really amazing experience. It was just such an honor to be able to live in that kind of environment for a while.
That just sounds amazing. Uh, I've been to Bhutan a couple of times. I'm on the board of the Bhutan Wine Company. I've been there a few times. I went there for the like first barrel harvest a couple of years ago. We're going again in October this year. So I spent a little bit of time in that part of the world. Um, and I'm actually working on a documentary about the people that started the Bhutan Wine Company. And the log line for the like we have a presentation and we've done a little teaser. So if anybody wants to see the teaser, just DM me. I'll send you the link. But the log line for the film is there is no word in Bhutanese for grape
Ah, because they never had them.
because they never had grapes, right? There were never any grapes in Bhutan until very recently when we brought in, I say we, but like when Mike and Ann brought in grapevines and started growing grapes about 8 years ago. So, talk to me about Nepal. Were there any grapes in Nepal?
Well, during that part of my life, I wasn't really in wine yet. So it really flew under my radar if there would have been any. I was more interested in the tea. They have a lot of different tea, obviously.
Hmm. Okay.
And they have a lot of dalbat, momos, a lot of different food, which I really enjoyed. But
There are momos in Bhutan as well.
they're the
Love the
best.
momos in Bhutan. Yeah,
They're really the best. I
fantastic.
lived on that from so long because in the monastery the food wasn't the best as you can imagine. So I got a
Hmm.
few times really sick from it. So then I just stuck to the momos.
So how long did you spend with the monks?
3 months.
3 months. Okay. So, you know, you found your chi And then where did you go?
So then I decided that I wanted to be more interested in food. So there was in Wageningen University, there's a master in food safety. So you learn everything that food does to your body. So it's also quite, it goes quite in depth. So you learn what all of the E numbers, for example, do, but also if you burn your food, what kind of substances are released, and if you digest it, what kind of pathways are then taken in your body to cause certain
Wow.
kind of harm, which was super,
But
super interesting.
yeah, that's
Um,
super interesting.
yeah.
So, so when you were learning that, what did you learn about wine? Because that's like a big topic right now, right? Like for some reason, it seems like everybody who studies food safety or pretends to study food safety is coming out with a new study every day that says even one drop of alcohol is bad for you. What do you think about when you back when you were learning, and then kind of what do you think of today about how does wine affect the human body?
Well, for sure, alcohol is not doing great things for your body. But also, if you drink too much water, it's not great for your body. Or if you only eat onions or nutmeg, or every substance in very abundance is never great for your body. So
Nutmeg is actually poison, right?
it's
Like if
very
you eat
big
enough of it,
poison.
it's poison. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the
Yeah.
biggest poisons you can find in a supermarket, actually.
Wow.
So
Interesting. So
from
you
that,
think moderation?
exactly, everything in moderation. And then you have the French paradox, which is really big, which is if you eat cheese with wine, actually it has some positive effects. So that's how you can justify it to
Al
yourself very easily.
Always eat cheese and wine. I like that. I like that. That's a and you've actually studied this. You're a professional. You're a scientist. So
Yes.
we're going to take your scientific word for it. Cheese and wine, good for you. And now I'm going to consider the issue settled, and we're
Yeah.
never going to talk about it again.
I think that is a very fair point. Doesn't matter whatever research is being released lately. This is just the
I
truth.
like it. I like it. That's very good. Very good. All right. So, how did you get from like food safety inspector to winemaker? And I know what happens next.
So
Give me the next the play by play.
actually, we have to go back a little step because when I was studying in Utrecht, when I was studying economics, my dad always had different kind of hobbies. So sometimes he was into diving, in bread making, in beekeeping, and at that point of time, his hobby was wine. So we had to do the W sets, which was in the town I was studying, and I
Yeah,
had to join.
of
So
course.
I had to do the W set 3 without any knowledge of wine. I didn't know the difference between Cabernet Sauvignon or Sauvignon Blanc.
How old were you?
I was at that point, I was 19 or 20.
That's awesome. Okay, great.
So
So you did the WSET 3 with your dad. So just for anybody that's listening to this, the WSET 3. So WSET is the Wine and Spirits Educational Trust, and they run a global educational program for people that want to be professionals in the wine and spirits industry, right? And so there's a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, and then there's a level 4, which is basically there's level 4 is Master of Wine. Isn't
yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Okay. So there are, as we've probably talked about here many times, there's only about 330 Masters of Wine on the planet. And for WSET 3, we calculate, I think there's about 11,000 people in the world that have a WSET 3 certification. So, like, more players in there have been more people that have played in the NBA than have achieved the WSET 3. It's a very difficult, very,
Wow.
very difficult test.
I did not know that it was so few.
Yeah, there's very, very few people that have it. You have it, Jana has it, Rodolfo has it as well. I sadly don't. I wouldn't be able to pass. I don't think I'd be able to pass WSET 1, which is why I surround myself with smart people. So you passed WSET 3 when you were 20 years old.
Yeah, so my dad
That's
did
incredible.
first the WSET 2, but that was in Amsterdam. So my sister was studying there, so she had to join for that one. So she passed that. And then the next one
Your
was
older sister or younger sister?
older.
Okay.
And then the 3 was in the city where I was studying. So I didn't get to do the 2 first. I just had to jump in immediately for 3.
Oh
So
wow.
then when I was studying in Wageningen, I was like, okay, I actually quite enjoyed learning about wine. I found it very interesting. And I wanted to get out of the laboratory because to be at food safety, you're a lot in the lab. And I found it very nice to be a little bit more outside of it. So there was this exchange program with Bordeaux. So I could study winemaking in Bordeaux. I was okay, cool. For half a year, at least I get a little bit more knowledge instead of just tasting wines. I will actually know how they're made. But then I started studying it and I completely fell in love with it. So I decided to just, instead of just half a year, I decided to continue the whole master degree in Bordeaux at the same time as the one I was still finishing up in Wageningen. And then I was always interested in biodynamics.
Mhm.
So already during my studies, I did some research at Grand Prix Lacoste to get more organic vineyards.
Give us 30 seconds on biodynamics. Most people, when they hear biodynamic wine, they hear, all right, so they put dung in a hoof and bury it in the corner of the vineyard. It's more than that, right?
It's more than that. It's
Okay.
actually, you take into account the nature. So everything you do is to create microbes so you
Hmm.
can spread it out on the vineyard so you have a more lively soil. Then on top of that, you implement more birds, for example, biodiversity, to make sure that not one pest can be abundant. So you really believe more in like a cycle of the vineyard instead of just that it is a monoculture and that it is in this kind of like glass dome that can't be touched. You really want that everything is interconnected because in the end, everything is interconnected. When you have, for example, everyone knows when you buy a tomato that has been grown in a greenhouse, it tastes like water. It really doesn't taste very interesting. But when you have this tomato that has been outside, that has been grown in the garden, there's all of this flavor. And it's the same with grapes. When you have them in this little dome that they only get the nutrients and everything from fertilizers, instead of that they're actually in this whole bubble with the nature and a lively soil, you actually get grapes that just taste better and then you can make better wine.
Yeah, that's fair. I like it. So what you're saying is you use just the exact right amount of pesticides to counteract the herbicides, right? Like those two things have to be in equal balance.
Yeah, and also you can
I'm
use
kidding, Annabelle. There's no pesticides or herbicides with biodynamic wines, right? Like you'd never use that stuff.
in principle no,
Okay, good.
but you make
You're
them from,
saying that some people cheat? You're
well,
not saying that
you
people
use
cheat.
natural products to make them.
Ah, okay, okay. Fair.
So
That's great.
there's some of that. And then on top of that, you actually use the moon and the stars also for certain kind of applications. So as everyone know, the tides of the sea, they are made by the moon because of the pull of the moon. Gravity pulls gravity.
Fair.
So it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
A vineyard is 70% water. So in the vineyard, there's also a pool of the water to the top of the vines or to the roots, which is also very makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, fair. I think that's fair. Okay.
So if you prune and all of the energy is in the roots, all of the water is in the roots, you lose the least amount of nutrients.
Right.
So
I got
by
it.
so by
So
taking into
you choose
account,
when you do different things
exactly,
based on the cycles of the moon.
yeah,
So it's not hocus pocus. There's science there, is what you're saying.
there's a big science behind it, but
Okay.
the science is sometimes a little bit downplayed by the hocus pocus people.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
yeah. I hear a lot of the hocus pocus. The
yeah,
hocus pocus is fun, right? Like that's what gets the headlines. But
it's
what you're
better
saying is
than
that the real science is cool, and it
no,
sounds
there's
like
big
that makes that
science.
what you're saying makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah,
All
yeah. So
right.
then I wanted to learn
So
more.
okay. So now you're biodynamic, and now you're studying biodynamics in at Chateau Comte in Bordeaux.
In Bordeaux, I did like the thesis, the end of the year thesis. Um, so I wanted to learn more about biodynamics. I did some research for organic. So then, after I finished all of my studies, I went to Napa Valley, to California, to work at Islay Vineyard, which is
Mm.
completely biodynamic already since 2000. So I thought like, okay, instead of me inventing the wheel, let's go somewhere where it's already invented. They know how biodynamics works. They know how to do everything. They make all of the preparations on site. So I thought this is a great learning opportunity. I will go there for half a year to learn everything and how it goes. I should have known that when I go somewhere for half a year to learn, I stay. So in the end, I ended up staying for 2.5 years to work full
Oh
time
wow.
way, um, which I really enjoyed. It's such a beautiful surrounding. I love Napa Valley. It's
What
really one.
years were you in Napa? Were you there during the fires?
Yes, during the big fires.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that
How
was.
was that?
It really. It's nothing that I've ever expected to live through because really our vineyards, they were on the hillside. There was fire when we were there, so you see the fire slowly creeping up over the hills, coming closer and closer, that at a certain point you just have to run from the fire, and you're driving on the road. On both sides there's fire. It's jumping over each other. The trees, they go up in a second like it's a little light match. It's it's such
Wow.
a crazy experience. It's really yeah, it's really still so unbelievable.
Wow. Okay. So 2.5 years at Islay in Napa Valley, battling fires and making biodynamic wine. And then what?
Then my partner has vineyards here in Spain, in Olita, but his parents, they never did anything with it. So the agriculturists, they always just sold off the grapes. They don't even live in the same region, so they have someone else managing it.
Okay.
And we were here, and the vineyard manager, he was like, do you want to see my vineyard? Because I also have a little vineyard. So I was like, okay, sure, why not? So he shows me this 80-year-old Garnacha vineyard with beautiful old vines. They have never been irrigated. It's this calcareous red soil. It's really beautiful. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing with this? Yeah, we just harvest the grapes and sell them to the cooperative for 40 cents a kilo.
So tell me, go back a step and tell me where you are. So you're in Spain, and you're near or in Rioja or near Rioja?
Near Rioja, it's in Navarra. So it's like half an hour from Pamplona, more or less.
Okay, so Pamplona, which is kind of up near San Sebastian, up near the French border. So actually not that far from Bordeaux, right? Like what, it's
No,
a 2 hour drive from Bordeaux?
a little bit more, 4 hours.
Oh, 4 hour drive from Bordeaux. Okay, but you're kind of due south of Bordeaux.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
But
But
it is,
just outside of Rioja, and maybe due west of Rioja. But
yeah,
very close, right? Half an hour outside of Rioja?
yeah, yeah. Even closer at some points because there's a little bit of overlap between
Okay.
Navarra and Rioja. But we have very much a land climate.
Wow. And you found this vineyard, 80-year-old Grenache vines in Navarra, close to Rioja, which is more known for Tempranillo, and 4 hours south of Bordeaux, which is known for the Bordeaux varietal. So you find this little Grenache vineyard there. What are you going to do with it?
Well, the thing is, Ganacha is really local from this kind of climate, this kind of terroir, because we're very much a land climate. So it's really originating from this area.
Yeah.
So it was okay. This is such a pity. And that is what I find really, really great about Spain. You still have these kind of really treacherous places that they have these old vineyards and they're like, yeah, we just sell it to the cooperative. Do you want them? I was like, yeah, I would like
I love
actually
that.
to have this vineyard. That would be great. So we worked out with him how to do it, how to get it. And then in 2022, I moved to Spain to really start producing my own wine.
That's an amazing story. I got to tell you, I know a lot of winemakers, and as I've said before, you know, winemakers are the most interesting people in the world, right? Because think about what you have to be in order to be a winemaker. And I'm talking to the audience now, not talking to you. You've got to be, you have to be a scientific genius in multiple disciplines, right? You have to be a scientific genius in chemistry, in geology, in you have to have a wonderful palate. You have to know how kind of all of those different and botany. You have to know how all of that stuff works together. You also have to live for, you have to live kind of in the middle of nowhere. So like that takes a unique kind of person. And more importantly, and again, every single vintage, you know, I've worked with wineries that are tiny, that have like one person, a winemaker and a mule. And I've worked with winemakers that are giant and have all of the technology known to man and every single way of analyzing every single thing. And they have I've worked with wineries that have drones that can go and tell what's the percentage of water in a grape that's sitting, in a bunch still in the vine. And yet every single vintage every year starts with a winemaker standing in a vineyard at 3 o'clock in the morning, tasting a grape in their mouth. And like that to me is the perfect blend of science and art. And it's kind of why I am in awe of all winemakers, you included, Annabelle. But you got to think like a person like that can do that can actually have not only keep all of that science in their head and be able to perform like a genius scientist, but also perform like a genius artist. Like that's the kind of person that would get, a bachelor's degree in economics and business administration and then go live in a monastery in Nepal and then study, food safety and then make their way to Bordeaux and Napa and fight fires. So this is what we're talking about. Like it's a very unique and interesting kind of person that makes wine, and so we couldn't be happier to not only to have you here today, Annabelle, but also to be working with you. So I really appreciate it, and thanks for telling your story.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
So let's talk a little bit since we're here talking about the Douro. Let's talk about Douro. So
Makes sense. Yeah.
so normally, in these situations, what I typically do is defer to the person who knows a lot more about wine to tell me about, the region that we're talking about. So can you tell us what you know about the Douro? Being the prodigy WSET 3 diploma holder.
Well, I have to say that my WSET was when I was really into studying. So I was very equipped to read a whole book, remember it, and forget about it the moment I had done the exam. So
Okay, fair.
that was really my strength. But in all fairness, I really like the Douro because I think it is such an underrated region still.
Let's start with the basics. Where is it?
It's in the north of Portugal. It's along the river, the Douro, next to Porto, I would say. Like for geographically, it's the
Maybe
closest.
45 minutes outside of
Yeah,
Porto. Yeah,
the closest to it. So you have
and
above
not a
it.
far drive from you.
No,
Like
it's
you're
very close.
probably what, 4 or 5 hour drive?
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. Like
You're about as close to the Douro as you are to Bordeaux.
yeah, yeah, it's quite in the middle. And then above it, you have Spain, where you have Galicia, Santiago de Compostela, Ribera Sacra. And then it's separated by mountains, which makes it the Douro is such a more hot kind of
Right.
climate. It's drier. It's very old. Like it's a very traditional old kind of wine growing region. What you said, like they have places that are over 200, 300 years already making wine at least.
Well,
Um,
most port is port grapes are grown in the Douro, right? Or
yes.
either in the Douro or Douro adjacent. And port they've been making port for 300 years,
Yeah.
um, sometimes older, 300, 400 years. So a lot of those vineyards are very, very old. The wineries are very, very old.
And they have a lot of really native grape varieties. So as we already said, the Touriga Nacional is really their biggest grape variety, I would say. But they have a bunch of grapes that you really wouldn't find out elsewhere. Like for example, in Bordeaux, you have Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's grown now all over the world.
Yeah,
But the varieties from the Douro, you really still think and feel they're only there in the Douro, which makes
yeah.
it quite special and unique, I believe.
I think we should steal some clippings or some cuttings and take them to Bhutan and see if we can plant some Nacional and Targ Franca or Franca in Bhutan. What do you say?
I think it could be really interesting.
Let's
But
give it a
the
shot.
thing is, I don't quite know the climate in Bhutan, but I think you need quite a dry and high in sun and quite dry climate.
We've got a couple of those. We have many different um, mini climates. So, but whatever. Let's talk about Bhutan next week. Let's talk about the Douro. So what are some of your kind of favorite um, favorite wines to come out of the Douro? Obviously, port comes out of the Douro. So if you're drinking port, whether you're drinking your 18 or 10-year Tawny port, or you're drinking a fresh we were talking in the green room before the show about there are all these great port and soda mixed drinks now, which are just fantastic, like really refreshing, great to drink during the summer. But what are your favorite wines out of the port, out of the Douro?
I love port. I think it's such an unique kind of flavor it has, and the whole Tawny kind of ideology. I think it slowly spread afterwards over other regions. But if I had to choose, I would go for a Touriga Nacional. A little bit older, because I think it needs a little bit of age on it. But I would go more for the dries, because for me a port is great if you have a piece of cheese. What I said, you need to have cheese and wine always together. Then for sure the port is really amazing. But for me, if I have to go more on what I would drink more regularly, it would be Touriga Nacional.
What I really like about the Douro is that they're really not afraid. It's kind of like Piemonte for me, in that they're really not afraid to put age on the wine, and I think it's because of this kind of history with port. So even the dry wines are significantly more. There's just a lot more age on it before they're released. I mean, I know that we work with Grahams and Symingtons. We've done a bunch of projects with them, and they don't release any red wines for 4, 5, 6 years after the vintage. So you're typically drinking wines that have had a chance to really mature. And for me, that's important. I think that's one of my favorite things about Douro.
I think what I always really like is when wineries release the wines when they're good to drink. That when they're released, it's their potential is great. It's the moment to drink them. Because I know in the US a lot is released. You have these Cabernet Sauvignons that are just 1 or 2 years old,
Yeah,
and you don't want to drink that for another 10 to 15 years.
right.
And I think the Duero does that really, really nicely. That indeed it can have age on it. They release it when it's ripe to drink. And I mean, they have the best corks, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's so anyone who's listening, most of the cork in the world comes from Portugal and comes from an area just south of the Douro. So
Yeah.
most like almost if you have a cork, like a real cork in your wine bottle, it probably came from Portugal. So obviously, yeah, yeah, great corks. Good corks meant to keep that wine stable for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, the Douro is also like remarkably beautiful. I said for a long time that the most beautiful wine region in the world is the Priorat. I love the Priorat. I love how like the mountains and how crazy how crazy it is. I think it's just one of the most beautiful places in the world. But the Douro is just magnificent. It's just one of the most, like, even if you don't drink wine, you got to go to the Douro at some point in your life just to see how beautiful it is.
I agree with that. I think really the terraces and the elevation differences make wine regions so beautiful. You have
Yeah, I
this
agree.
in other areas as well, but I think the Douro, it's one, yeah, I completely agree with that. I think these kind of elevations, and you can stand on top of the mountain in a vineyard, look down over all of the other little vineyards you see everywhere. It's absolutely gorgeous.
And actually, that takes me back to my Quinta de Noval. So this is one of the oldest wineries, and I mean, it's one of the oldest vineyards, one of the oldest wineries in the Douro. And one thing that it's very well known for, which is a little bit different from most other vineyards in the Douro, is how kind of meticulous and pristine their vineyards are. So if anyone's ever been to Pomerol, and like gone to visit the vineyards in Pomerol, like they look like hedgerows. Like they they kind of um uh they take care of the vines in this way that is like, there's usually not a scrap of cover crop, like it's just stones or just sand. They keep everything exactly right. They trim the leaves. Um they do all of the work to make it look perfect. And the Douro, you've got a lot of different kinds of vineyards. You've got these giant, big, head train vineyards. You've got that look like, Sideshow Bob. You've got a lot of, more wild vineyards. But Quinta Naval, one of the things that you really notice when you're driving through the Douro, when you see Quinta Naval, which has, many, many hectares of vineyards, is that they're all perfect. They're just you think that you're back in Pomerol.
I think what you say now is it's so nice because indeed, when you go through the Douro, you can see which vineyard belongs more or less to which kind of house because you see these
Yeah,
really neat little rows that are like meticular, like they're almost with nail clippers kind of maintained. And then
yeah,
next to it, indeed, you have these overgrown, and then you have one with only cover crops. And I think that is always so nice when you see this really specific that each place has their own character,
yeah,
which I think is really, really present in the Duero.
yeah. And it really, it creates, I think, a really interesting ecosystem. It creates a lot of um, a lot of differentiation between the different vineyards. It also provides a lot of great raw material for anyone who wants to do interesting blends. Like it's really it's a wonderful place. I highly recommend anyone who's never been there, you should go. And they're really ripping right now, making some of the best wines in the world, some of the most, I think you're starting to see, um like, it used to be that the only investment grade wines to come out of the Douro were the vintage ports, but now I think you're starting to see, maybe half a dozen dry wines come out of the Douro that are kind of in that investment grade status every year. So it's the place to go if you're looking for alpha. The Douro is the place to look for it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think as well that they're really investing in making these wines, the dry wines, more investing grade. Before, they used to make all of the vineyards ready for port. Well, I think now
Yeah,
they really start to make the vineyards more for the dry wines and get them higher potential.
yeah. Well, so we're on our last minute here, Annabelle. And I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today, for, telling us about your, like, kind of unbelievable story that takes you to being a winemaker, making some pretty, and I have to say, I've been very fortunate to have tasted a few of Annabelle's wines. I have a few that I'm cellaring. It's pretty spectacular. Very, very hard to get on her list. You know, my understanding is that you kind of have to hire her in order to get on her in order to get on the distribution list. But if you find one of her bottles, we'll put in the show notes the name of the brand. But if you can find her bottles, I would hold on to them. They're hard to find. Really, really fantastic wine, and from a pretty fantastic person. So really, really appreciate you spending time. Any last words for the audience, either on Rioja or on the Douro? Finding your way in wine.
Thank you so much first for having me, and it really is a pleasure to share my story with everyone. And yes, I would recommend everyone, if you can make it out to the Douro, take a trip, skip Rioja, skip other regions, go to Porto. It's an amazing city, and then take a trip to the Douro.
Well, I know one person that isn't going to want to hear you say skip Rioja, but we won't mention
There
his
are
name.
many, I would say. And I think there are many that wouldn't like
You're
to say
gonna
it.
get in a lot of trouble for that. Maybe we should cut that
Yeah, yeah.
out of the final
We can
version. Okay.
always do that, but
All right. Thank you very much, Annabelle. I appreciate it, and thank you everybody for tuning in for Wine Wednesday. We're coming back next week. I don't remember the topic for next week, but it's coming soon. Thank you all. Cheers. Salute. We always tap the camera. All right, and